Hello everybody, it's your friendly digital technology librarian, Christy here. We've reached another Friday, so of course I have another Film Rec Friday ready for everybody out there. Now, September is Library Card Sign-Up Month, and as a library worker, I want to encourage everyone out there who doesn't happen to have a library card to head to your local library to sign up for one. Library cards give you so many options. Of course, you were able to check out things like books, magazines, audiobooks, but there's so many other options out there. You can, in most libraries, check out tons of streaming options like you can at my library. You can also check out things from what's called a library of things these days. Library of things includes items such as gardening tools, baking pans, crafting tools. I mean, the possibilities are limitless. So definitely go to your local library, find out what's part of their catalog, and take advantage of having a library card. As this is Library Card Sign Up Month, this week I am taking the time to celebrate libraries and librarians with selections that feature them. I'm also picking films that you can get through our physical media service through CleveNet, as well as what we do every week, talking about our digital options. So this week our titles are really interesting. I have some fictional storylines. I do have one documentary that I find fantastic, and hopefully one of these films will speak to you. If not, make sure you check out our digital catalog. We have so many options out there. You will definitely find something that you're interested in. And check out our physical catalog as well. We have tons of options, especially since we are part of the CleveNet consortium. You can definitely find a movie that you are going to be interested in. So without any further ado, let's get into the recs. Okay, let's kick things off with a selection from CleveNet, and that's going to be 1999's The Mummy. Now, 1999's The Mummy has tons of things going for it. One of those being that Brendan Fraser plays the lead. Brendan Fraser, if you've been paying any attention to entertainment news, has been really seeing this kind of resurgence in his film career. In the 90s and in the early 2000s, it was like he was in half the movies you could go see, especially big blockbusters. Really reliable, relatable actor, but not someone who I would necessarily think of as someone who was going to garner tons of critical acclaim. That said, he was someone I knew whose movies I could go to and have a good time. Recently, he's been getting tons of press for his performance in The Whale. There's a lot of Oscar buzz around it and just awards buzz in general. And I've actually seen him in several other films over the years where his acting really does shine. And going back and watching something like The Mummy, which is definitely action, adventure, romance, swashbuckling fun, and sort of putting those two versions of himself together, it's interesting to watch that evolution of a performer. So The Mummy not only features a really solid performance from Brendan Fraser, as again I said, all of his early performances were very solid and reliable, but it also features phenomenal acting from our librarian in the film, Rachel Weisz, who is, as always, unbelievably solid. She's just one of those actresses I know if she's in a film, I'm going to like what she does. She makes amazing choices. She has a really organic feel to her performance. No matter if we're talking about sort of a throwback style of acting where you want to have that sort of really stylized presentation, or if you're talking about something really contemporary, she just always does an amazing job with it. And her role in The Mummy is no different. Again, like I mentioned, she's our librarian. You really like her, and she's probably, one of those characters that I think of the most when people are like, who's a librarian on film. I generally think of this particular character as well as Giles from Buffy the Vampire Slayer, the series. But that's neither here nor there. Anyway, so 1999's The Mummy is actually a remake of the classic 1932 horror film. Now, the 1999 version is definitely not a horror movie. It is, as I said, a swashbuckling action adventure romance. It really does lean into the chemistry between our two leads. They really make the movie. You would think that it would be all hinging upon the mummy, but for me, it really didn't. This movie is about the two characters played by Brendan Fraser and Rachel Weisz. Um, but I will say that Arnold Vosloo, who plays the mummy, once he gets on screen, is really, really an awesome performance. He does play a really layered character, and we get from the early parts of the film when they do flashbacks, how he's absolutely not just this sort of mustache twirling villain. There's actually a lot of depth and a lot of facets to the character. And, you know, especially once we get into the sequel, you really start to see those layers, and it does become a really solid performance piece for him. You've got a lot of humorous performance coming in with John Hannah and several of your other character actors in here, but John Hannah is definitely at the forefront of that. So you've got amazing performances really by your entire cast. You've got a really exciting storyline. Like I mentioned, it's 100% action adventure vibe, not horror vibe. And it is PG-13, so even if they were trying to lean into the horror of it, there would have been some challenges, I think. But they do a good job with some of the like slightly tense moments where it could verge on scary. But this is definitely something that I would describe as a family-friendly film. It's got a lot of humor in there. You've got a lot of quick witticisms from your main characters, but you do have that really great action adventure pacing to it. There are certainly expository lulls where you're getting more information and backstory about what is going on, but once those actiony moments hit, they really do, and you are absolutely caught up in what's happening on screen. As mentioned, it does have a couple other sequels. Certainly watch the next film, The Mummy Returns. That one is also really, really great. It does still feature Brendan Fraser and Rachel Weisz. But past that, I would just sort of, maybe if you really love these particular mummy movies, check it out. But the first two are really the ones that you're going to want to view back-to-back kind of situation. So if you are looking for an action-adventure film that features a really great leading man with an absolutely charming librarian. Again, Rachel Weisz's librarian, Evie, in this is one of my favorite librarians on screen. Absolutely check out The Mummy. You will have so much fun. It's just one of those movies that I can still watch, and it's, you know, a couple decades down the line, and it's never one where I'm bored. You know, and I've watched it a dozen times at least in the intervening years. So again, available on Blu-ray or DVD through our CleveNet service. 1999's The Mummy. It's a must-watch. Okay, moving right along to another selection from CleveNet. This one's available on DVD, and it's 1957's Desk Set. I first saw Desk Set as a small child with my grandparents. It's one of those classic Spencer Tracy, Katharine Hepburn movies, and I have loved it ever since. Desk Set features one of the most competent librarians on screen. Katharine Hepburn plays Bunny Watson. She's essentially a reference librarian for this large entertainment company, and she's just the epitome of efficient, intelligent, skillful librarian. I mean, she's the one, everyone in her team is good at their jobs. Everyone knows what they're supposed to do, but if they have a question, she's the one they go to. If they have a patron who they really need help with, then in almost all of this is done via phone. She's the one that they transfer that patron to. She's just amazing. And the conflict in this film comes when she believes that she and her entire department are being pushed out by Spencer Tracy's character, Richard Summers, who is a gentleman who's invented essentially a very, very early version of the computer. She thinks her entire department is going to be automated, and that's where you get that clash of wills. And watching the two of them on screen is just kind of a masterclass in acting. Yes, a lot of the spark comes from their natural chemistry. I mean, anytime you've seen any of their films, this is actually one of their last films that they did together. There's this one, and then after that, there's only Guess Who's Coming to Dinner, I want to say, post this one, and you can see, like, they know what they're doing. They know how to play off of one another. But even if you're watching one of their earlier films, like An Adam's Rib or anything like that, that spark is there from the get-go. So not to take away from the storyline or anything, but there's automatically going to be some really great underlying tension going on just because you've got those two on screen. But the story itself, I really enjoyed, and I think it's one of those that is relevant today because we do have concerns about automation taking over departments, what that means, and how to stay educated on top of things like that. And a film from the 50s to be as relevant today as it was then, that's pretty impressive. And besides all of that, you've still got this entire team made up of women who are incredibly good at their jobs. And I just kind of adore that fact, that was very clear on screen. These were people who knew what they were doing. They were not to be discounted. You also, in addition to having a really solid storyline and some really proper acting from two amazing, amazing thespians, you've got some really, really interesting secondary characters. A couple of them are faces that I know I've definitely recommended movies featuring them in the past. Gig Young is one of them. He always seems to be secondary lead. Poor guy. But yeah, like I said, it's just one of those really, really great films that I think anyone in today's world can appreciate. Like the whole concept of their early computer, what it's capable of doing, how some people are really, really amazed, but others are already thinking of problems that can arise from it. Seeing how those kinds of themes don't really change over time. Besides that, you again just have like really, really solid acting throughout the whole film. So if you're looking for a classic movie that again is relevant today, the rom-com death set is definitely one that you want to put on your list. It's romantic and it's funny, but again, super relevant and featuring a really strong female character and as just a strong male character, but really honestly featuring a female character who is just amazing and you just really fall in love with right away. Again, Spencer Tracy and Katharine Hepburn in Desk Set. You absolutely have to watch it. Available on DVD through CleveNet. Okay, my next selection is one of our digital options, and it's available on both Hoopla and on Kanopy, and that is 1995's Party Girl. I have always loved this movie. It's so much fun, and it does really feel a bit like a love letter to libraries in a way. Party Girl stars the incomparable Parker Posey. She's one of those indie queens that rose up in the 90s and is still someone I look for in movies, and I know I'm going to look forward to whatever role she's playing, whether she's a lead or secondary. She's just always amazing. Party Girl is, as mentioned, from 1995. It was Daisy von Schurler-Meyer's directorial debut. Von Schurler-Meyer went on to put together several other films. She's still a director and writer today, and she just makes interesting creative decisions. And I think Party Girl is one of those debuts that just was kind of magic with all of the things that went right. And when so many things can go wrong when you're first breaking into an industry. Parker Posey plays Mary in this particular film. Mary is sort of a free spirit. She doesn't have any direction. She's essentially living off of the money that her mother left her when she passed. She is kind of generally pretty jobless and aimless and a party girl. Like, you know, she was a part of that club scene from the 90s, and she had very little sense of responsibility, and she was perfectly happy that way, or at least she thought she was happy that way. At a certain point, she ends up with her godmother working as a desk clerk at a small branch of the New York Public Library. And as the film goes on, we see her really grow in her position. She starts out just trying to prove to her godmother that, yeah, she can hold down a job. Yeah, she's not just some useless, aimless party girl, but she really starts to fall in love with what she's doing. She likes the order, she likes the responsibility, she likes the people. And of course, the film isn't just about her job. The film is very much about her relationships with people, her friends, but that job is a central part of it. Her friends then sort of start to interact with this new Mary who's now obsessed with the idea of organization. There's actually this hilarious scene where she reorganizes her best friend's record collection. Her best friend is a DJ, and it's like the night of this big event, and suddenly his stuff is all out of order, except she's able to help him. She's like, I did it by the Dewey Decimal System, and she shows him how to find things, and they're able to get him where he's going. But it's just really cute. It's one of those cute moments where you're just like, that was horrifically silly, but absolutely fabulous at the same time. And I think absolutely fabulous is kind of a perfect way to describe this movie in general. I mean, it's definitely very much a part of the 90s. Looking at it like a period piece, it's definitely 90s movie. The fashion is so incredibly trendy, like the attitudes, the vernacular that they're using, it's all like mid 90s. But it feels really entertaining today. I don't know that it feels retro in any way, but it feels like you're hopping back into that time period. So, retro, vintage, whatever you want to call it, I still think it's got a great vibe to it. Tons of really familiar faces in this one. Liev Schreiber plays a small role in it. Mary's aunt is played by a really famous New York stage actress at the time, who'd been in, I think I was reading about her bio, like over 100 productions in the city. Of course, Parker Posey. I'm trying to think some of the other films you might have seen Parker Posey in. If you are a Christopher Guest fan, she is definitely an anchor of his brilliant improv performers. She's in tons of his movies, from Waiting for Guffman to Best in Show, and she's always super reliable. She's got a great sense of comedic timing, and the absurd, just a great sense of the absurd, so she can play with that whole crew. Oh, and the music in Party Girl is fantastic too. If you went to clubs in the mid 90s or the early 2000s, like, this is the soundtrack of your youth. And it's really, really fun. And it's just a great movie to watch when you want to see like a late coming of age. She's obviously not a teenager anymore. She's in her early 20s, but she really finds herself by the end of the film. And it stays light and it stays funny. It never gets crazy heavy. It's just an entertaining, feel-good movie. You've got humor, you've got a little bit of drama, you've got romance, and at the heart of it, you just got this effervescent main character that you enjoy watching evolve. So if you're looking for a film that has all of that, including a bit of a love letter to libraries, check out 1995's Party Girl on Hoopla or Kanopy. You won't regret it. All right, final recommendation for this week is available on Kanopy, and that is 2017's documentary, Ex Libris, the New York Public Library. I love this film. I absolutely love it. I've seen it a few times now, and it's just as enjoyable now as the first time that I watched it. I don't think I've ever laughed quite so much in a documentary as I have in this one, just because there's so many amusing moments, whether we're just talking about like charming little things or pockets of absurd. I think this film will appeal to anyone who loves libraries, but also anyone who's ever worked in customer service. So Ex Libris is a Frederick Weissman film. He's done tons of documentaries, and every single one of them is just this great little behind the scenes glimpse into whatever world he's decided to focus on. So in this one, we get to see all kinds of behind the scenes bits and pieces of the New York Public Library system and its main branch, as well as its, I think at the time, 90 plus branches. Uh, this isn't a spoiler, but even in the trailer, we get those little pockets of humor where a telephone reference librarian is trying to answer questions about unicorns. Unicorns. Not just like general, like, where can I find a book about unicorns, but apparently, at least from our end of the conversation that we can hear, about real unicorns, which I think most of us recognize are not real. I mean, unicorn's a fictional thing. Apparently, not everyone got that memo. But yeah, it's just like little bits and pieces of that sort of absurd interaction that I think, again, would appeal to anyone who's been in any kind of customer service related field. Where those are actually kind of the delightful bits of your day where it's just like, that was fun and that was funny and I love what I do. Besides those little pockets of humor, it's just a really great way to see how things run in a giant library system. Obviously, Milan-Berlin Library District is very, very small, like very, very small. So being able to go behind the scenes of something that serves millions and millions of people, that's pretty amazing. So whether or not you're in a library field, a customer service field, whatever, I think that being able to see the inner workings and how a book can go from here to here to here when dealing with so many stops and starts is just really, really cool in general. This was one of those documentaries that kind of made its way through all of the little film festivals, was constantly getting accolades, and I think it's very easy to see why. It makes information really accessible and is really dedicated to the idea of information going out to people, just like the concept of the library in general. And I think those two things just mesh so well. It's like the perfect subject matter for Weissman. It really, really is. So if you've ever been interested in working in a library, finding out how libraries work, if you just like documentaries that are exceptionally well made, because this one is a fantastically well done one, check out 2017's Ex Libris, New York Public Library. You won't regret it. It's a great, great documentary. Okay, so we have come to the end of our celebration of libraries and librarians in this episode. We're always celebrating libraries and librarians, let's be real. But if you have a recommendation for a film that features either libraries, librarians, library systems, please, please, please comment with those below. I love getting recommendations. I know other watchers would love to have your input as well. And if you have any recommendations for themes you'd like to see me cover in the future, comment with that too. Definitely need help on that front. As always, thank you so much for joining me. I really do love doing these deep dives into our digital catalog, and I love when I get the chance to really dive into our physical DVD and Blu-ray catalog as well. There's so much available with your library card. If you're a film or television fan, you absolutely need to have a library card because it just opens up so many avenues of entertainment. Really and truly, it's a must. And with that, I'm going to go ahead and close out this episode. Again, thank you for joining me, and I will see you next week. Bye-bye.